Hi everybody, I'm Big D, the Crafting Dragon, and today we're going to start with the basics. We're going to learn how to turn this into this. Welcome back, everyone. So what are we talking about today? Foam board dungeon tiles. This is a basic piece that makes any game table pop. They're easy to make, and for a small amount of money, you can make a huge table worth of these tiles. Grid paper is great, but it's my goal to show you how to wow your players. Now, insulation foam board comes in a few colors. That just tells you who it's made by. I get pink because I get Foamular, which is made by Owens Corning. The big thing is you're going to want is the 1/2 inch thickness. Comes in a few different thicknesses. This is what we use for this project. You can get it at any big box hardware or home supply store like a Lowe's or a Home Depot. Here in the Midwest, I go to Menards for about $12. I can get a 4-foot by 8-foot sheet. If you don't have a vehicle, just bring a snap blade and cut it in half. Sometimes it comes with a protective plastic sheet. You're going to want to peel that off and throw that away. Now, other than the foam, you're going to need a few other basic supplies. You're going to want a sharp razor knife. I suggest an X-Acto, but have spare blades because foam will dull this quickly. And when you get with a dull blade, you'll get this pitting and tearing, and it just really doesn't look good at all. You're going to want a metal carpenter square or a metal ruler. And I got to stress the metal part. If you use plastic or you use wood, you're just going to carve that up with your knife because we're going to use the metal as a guide to run the blade along while we're measuring. You're also going to need a ballpoint pen. This is going to be used for after the cutting to do some detail work, and I'll show that technique. Once you're done doing your cutting, you're going to want to do some painting. You're going to need to put a base coat, and you can't use spray paint because spray paint will melt your foam. I believe it's got acetone inside of the accelerant. So what I use, and this is a big shout out to Black Magic Craft, I use Podge. I get a 16-ounce bottle and I throw in 1 ounce of black paint. I used to just use black paint, but I love the protective nature of Podge. Really, really protects the foam a lot better, makes it a lot sturdier, and adds just a little bit of weight, so it's still light, but it's nice and sturdy. You also want to get some other paints. You're going to want a dark gray and a light gray, and stone has hints of other colors than gray, so I use like a dark chocolate brown. I'll also use a golden brown and a brick red. You'll want to get some cheap brushes. You can get a pack of those at Michael's for like $5. You want at least one wide one, and you'll also want a painting sponge. This is a great investment. It's an easy way to do a nice stippling effect with some random, really add some depth. We'll go into the technique during the painting, and maybe later we'll do another video about some other painting techniques that we can talk about. Lastly, you're going to want to get a sheet of tinfoil, and you're going to want to ball it up. And this is what we're going to use to actually texture foam itself. So, let's start our project. Alright, we're going to cut some foam. My method involves using an X-Acto knife and just a square, ruler, straight edge, whatever you want to use. I use a carpenter square because I can be at nice 90-degree angles on a lot of my cuts. And for most of the things I do, it's big enough to work with. I don't need a yardstick. So, you get your foam. I'm going to use a scrap piece to show you my method, and then we're going to show what I do with the bricks once I have them. So, we've got a nice square edge here at the bottom. You get your ruler lined up to it, make sure it's nice and against it, so you get a nice 90-degree angle. The key with using a blade is that you don't try and cut too deep too quickly, and you use a fresh blade. So, start off with a scoring cut, just a little cut, just the tip of the blade. Try and go right against your straight edge here. Then your second cut's going to be a little deeper, almost the full length of the blade, and then we're going to go all the way to the cutting surface and come through. Nice clean cut. Alright, so here we have one of my pre-cut 3x3 squares. Now this isn't 3 inches by 3 inches, but it's going to be a grid of 3x3. I use grid. If you don't use grid, when I get to the texturing part, you'll be able to skip part of that, but I'm just going to go through my entire process. So we've got our 3x3. Cuts were a little, one of my blades is starting to get dull. This is the kind of things you'll see with that. So I clean the foam up before I do anything with it anyhow. So I suggest you get yourself a sanding sponge. That way you can just reuse the sanding over and over instead of going through sanding paper. And this is just to clean the brick up a little bit. We're just going to clean it a little bit up. And then once we've decided on where our top edge is going to be, we're going to bevel it just a little bit using sanding paper. Just kind of take off a little bit on the top there, just around the edges. Not a lot. Just enough. Alright, now we're going to texture it. I use a tinfoil ball method. This is an old one. You can see after you've used it for a while, they get really smooth and you start losing the ability to texture. So when they start getting to a point where it's almost completely smooth, get yourself a new sheet of tinfoil, ball it up, and then you just want to take it and you want to run it across the surface. There's really no scientific method to this. You just want to make sure that you cover the entire surface and you don't use the same area over and over. You want it to look nice and random. If you want, you can also run it across the edges. Alright, so now we have a piece of foam. If you're just making the blocks to make blocks and you're going to go gridless, you can stop here and just paint and good to go. Now if you're going to use my method, I put the grid right in. So, we go back to our square. I use a 1 1/4 inch grid, so this is 375 across, 3 inches and 3/4. So we know that 1/3 of that is going to be 250. So we go back to the scoring cuts, just a little bit of the tip. And you just go in, just put a basic cut. And you can go around and you put your 4 cuts on your piece just by going around. And again, you're only putting the tip in just a little of the way. You don't want to go too deep. You don't want to create a cut or that's too deep that could cause the board to snap. There you go. Now you've got your grid in. Okay, silly me, forgot to change the batteries. So we're back. And we went through the scoring process already, but I didn't get a chance to show you the chasing. So you've got your scores in there. Now you're going to take a ballpoint pen and you're just going to run through where you scored. And you'll see that makes your scoring much more dramatic, so people will be able to see the squares for your grid a lot cleaner. And there you go. Backside's still plain, sides have some texture, and your grid's good to go. At this point, you could texture it up a little more if you want. You could put some cracks in. Just remember, if you're going to go cracks, they always go edge to edge. So if you start on the edge, you've got to go all the way through, or else it doesn't really going to be a crack. Some people go overboard. Yeah, so do a couple. I usually, if I'm going to do them, I do a number of squares equal to the base grid. So it's a 3x3, so I would do 3 plus or minus 1. In this case, I'm going to do 2. So you just want to take the pen and just kind of Make your cracks look organic. And don't be afraid. Here's the thing. If you tear up a piece, you know, and it doesn't look right, you can always just take a little bit of your knife, squirt a little bit, and go back in with the pen, and you can make your scoring look a little bit deeper, a little bit more organic, a little more damaged. I've done entire tiles where I didn't have any damage at all because I didn't want it to be damaged. I want it to look pristine. So you don't have to. Less is more. So don't feel you got to go too crazy. But see, we got a couple cracks. You got to pick one of them, and this will look good. All right. Next stage is going to be painting. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to give it a coat of our black paint, which is Podge filled with black paint. So I use a 16-ounce body and I put 1 ounce of black paint in there. We'll come back when that's dry because I'm hoping putting a base coat of paint, everybody knows how to do that. I just put it on thick, but don't put it on goopy. Just make sure you get everything nice and covered. We'll come back after that dries and we'll talk about doing detail work. Okay, so painting. Got our piece with its base coat on there, ready to go. Take our brush, like I said, you wanted a wider one for this. And then we've got a palette that we've got marked up with a little paint to start off with. So, we take our dark gray, and again, I use Craftsmart. It's because I have access to Michael's, but you can go to Joann's or Walmart, and they've got both Folk Art and Apple Barrel. Those are perfectly acceptable. You just need a basic craft paint. We're going to take some dark gray, and because this is the main color coming through, you can be in a little thicker with this, but you're going to come at a 45-degree angle to the piece. That way you're not covering up the detail that you've worked into the piece, but at the same time you're going to be able to cover everything nice and neatly. Basically, you won't fill in the lines, which is what you want to show through. And when you're painting something like this, you want to have your strokes go all the way through the object. And then you're going to give it a turn, and you're just going to do a little bit of a touch through, just to make sure you got a nice even coat. Again, you're going to see some of the texture already come through, and we don't want to completely cover that. We want to show that those are deeper, exaggerate. And that's kind of what the process is. You're trying to exaggerate what your colors are to make it stand out. So, now we're going to go with the sponge. And again, the reason I like the sponge is you can get a little bit of paint and just kind of speckle things with it a little easier than you can with a brush. Nice random patterning. So, with the dark brown, what we're going to start off with, and this is going to be the deep undercoat with the speckling. So you find a large section, get your brown paint on there, and just... palette doesn't roll out, so we're going to put a little bit more on the palette. And as you can tell, we're painting a couple pieces today. So, don't need a lot of paint. But you just want to get some speckling on there. So, it's a good amount. Dab it off a bit. You don't want to overpaint. But then you're just going to touch on the brown. And the brown's the heaviest of your undercolors. So, Nice color and coverage there. You see the gray shows through, but you still can see your nice heavy brown. Now, we're going to go to our brick red. We're going to find another spot of our sponge. We're just going to pick up a little red, and we just want to speckle a little bit with this. Just a touch to put some traces of the red through the brown. Nothing too heavy, just a little bit. And we're going to do the same thing with our golden brown. Again, just touching it. Just a few spots. All right. And we're going to let that dry. And then once that's dry, we're going to go on top of it and we're going to do a dry brushing with the light gray. So I'm going to show that. When this is dry, we're going to come back. Okay, we're back. So now we've got our piece dry. We actually have two of them. Like I said, I've been working on a couple of these here. And we're going to do our light gray dry brushing. So for dry brushing, we're going to get a little bit of this paint. This is the light gray. And we're going to take most of it off. So, because we only want a hint of it on there. We got most of it off. It looks pretty clean off. And then you're going to just start and do it near an edge because you don't want to glob it on, just in case you didn't get enough off your brush. But you're just going to gently drag the brush that's not enough. Okay. Okay, welcome back. So we're going to try the light gray dry brushing now. Everything's dry, so we're just going to get a little bit of this light gray. And this is really to make your details pop. So you don't want a lot of it on there because you don't want to cover things. You want it to just highlight things. So you're just taking this, and you've got most of your paint taken off the brush. And you're going to start near an edge, and you're just going to lightly drag it across. Just to put some gray across your heightened surfaces. Again, just a little paint at a time. Take most of it off. You're not trying to recoat the project. You just want to make everything kind of stand out. Again, these strokes, you want to have them come all the way through your project, because you don't want to have them not stand out. You don't want to have them start off, and you don't want to go back on your piece. That'll look bad. So you're just taking full long strokes all the way through. And you'll see where this light gray is just showing up on the tips and tops, the edges of the square, the tops of our pitting from our tinfoil, just to really highlight the whole object. And just to give you an idea, this is the same piece, same painting techniques, but so you can see what the difference dry brushing does. Okay, so here we are with our completed set. After we finished with the dry brushing, we took a sealer and gave them a light coverage. You can use just about any kind of matte or satin sealer depending on your choice. I used matte. And this is what you get out of about a half little under a half a sheet. I cut 12 of these 6x6. I've got 9 of the 6x2 hallways. I've got 36 of these 3x3 squares. And I've got 9 of the 2x3. So, got a nice sized dungeon, as you can see here. Also, shout out to my buddy Josh at Citadel Games here in Milwaukee, because no dungeon is complete with a single 20x20 room. But as you can see with the figures, works well. And here we've got our intrepid band of heroes running into the Ogre Magi and his Gnoll minions. Nice, good room. Plenty of room for moving the figures around. Clearly see where they are. And it really does make the game table pop. And you can see everything we've got set up here. And we've still got a ton of extra pieces. So there's no dungeon you shouldn't have enough pieces for just using a single half sheet of that foam. I want to thank everyone for sharing this craft with me, and we'll see you next time. Game on.